Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pinfall podcast. I am your host, Elizabeth. I am joined, as always, by the one, the only.
My name was cut off when you said it, so I just heard the one, the only. Howdy ho, Ranger Joe.
That's not my name. I just said my name.
Ranger Joe.
We forgot
the Pinfall podcast with Ranger Joe and
Sergeant Chucks. So happy post backlash.
Backlash.
Oh,
That's June. We ain't in June anymore. This here is July country.
In theory, this is post backlash. I wasn't wrong. Discuss.
You want me to restart the intro and everything? I could just play another song and then cut back to here, and then we'll just run through everything again. We can do that.
No, let everyone enjoy me in my bold glory. Happy post Extreme Rules.
Happy Post Malone.
Happy Post Malone. Upstate New York native. Another one for the books. Tilt my computer screen back a little bit so people can see. We came to the realization today that we are going to be doing 3 podcasts in a row this coming month of August because we have SmackDown and then NXT TakeOver Boston, which I'm not actually totally sure what they're doing for that because it's not happening in Boston. I can
It's
you as much as that.
probably gonna be another in your house.
Yeah. And then we've got SummerSlam. So we will be logging up your Twitch feed 3 times in 1 week. 3
consecutive
times in a row.
days. 5 times in 1 week.
So we have 2 days off. Awesome. We chose this life. So we started tonight off with pretty much exactly where I wanted to start off tonight. Because the only real question I had after Backlash was, what do we do with Seth now? And apparently what we do with Seth now, I think we've been doing with Seth for the past month and 2 months? 2 months, maybe?
Since Money in the Bank, so 2 months.
So Seth came out looking. I'm gonna keep adjusting my camera for the rest of the time. Seth came out looking as happy as a clam. We were informed that Ray is not going to lose his eyesight. Shocker.
Oh no.
And basically, Seth just kind of says exactly what I was feeling for most of last night and today when he was walking out, which is kind of Seth just followed the rules. Someone was losing an eye.
To be fair, to be very fair, Seth accepted the stipulation.
When Seth is like, I don't know how he got here, it's like, well, you shoved Ray's eye into a set of steel steps a couple months ago.
Yep.
So that's pretty much how we got here. But
also, poor Ray.
In his defense, yeah, I guess.
Ray was thrown off a roof. He was choked out by Shayna Baszler, and he's had his eye bludgeoned twice. His eye gouged out one time, literally out of his eye socket.
He was choked by Shayna Baszler before he was thrown off the roof.
Yeah, I got the order wrong. I didn't say it in chronological order.
One thing that annoyed me a little bit was that I'm tired of the trainees acting like they need to incessantly boo Seth when we get it. Boo for like a little bit. Like obviously he's the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need y'all booing him so much that I can't actually hear him talking because I know you guys know what's going on.
Yeah, boo at the
To the
entrance.
degree, at least to the degree of like, I know you guys know that like this isn't real.
Mm-hmm. There was even a
Yes.
point where they were booing him, and he was like, all right, calm down, come on." They just would not stop. They would not
Yeah.
stop. He tried to continue, and then somebody shouted something, and then he was like, all right, well, whatever.
Um. That's the whole thing is that like right now we're in a position where the wrestlers can do different storylines that like they normally wouldn't be able to do maybe because of how the crowd would react.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exciting because like we're seeing some more extreme stuff. We're seeing some new stuff. I don't need NXT trainees. I don't need Rick Buggs over there screaming his head off, booing Seth when it's like, I get it. He's a bad guy.
You
I've
want to
watched
be the
enough movies to know.
spotlight.
However, big shout out to the one guy who Seth said something about. He said Rey Mysterio, and then someone shouted out from the crowd of trainees, "Can't see." I said, "He lost his eye less than 24 hours ago. How dare you? First of all,
And he will be able to see.
he will be. No consequences in WWE,
Yeah.
unless the consequences come directly from Vince."
Poor Heath Slater.
Slater?
It was let go.
Sorry. My head was going to someone else, and I'm not going to get into that right now.
Okay.
But yeah, poor Heath Slater. It's not in good taste. As Seth is talking, all of a sudden we hear that driving guitar riff, and my sweet, sweet, sweet Alistair. Sweet Alistair Black. Out of absolutely nowhere. I miss his walk, like, I miss his walkout thing. Them rising up from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that, like, I'm like, who's gonna come out now? And then it's just Alistair, and I'm like, yes! This is exactly who I wanted! Alistair comes out. Alistair has a mic. They're definitely giving him more lines than they used to, which I appreciate. He says the same thing that he always says, basically, like, still a bad guy.
Yeah.
Don't get arrested. And Murphy goes after him, and Alistair sends a solid boot Murphy's face. And then a nice little knee to his trachea. Sends him over the announce desk. So good. And then he goes after Seth, and Seth's like, hey. And that brings us to the first fight of the night. I do. A great promo for this first fight. Because I was kind of thinking that they were going to start taking Seth in a slightly different direction, in spite of the fact that everyone has said that they're going to finish this storyline at SummerSlam. I was sort of expecting them to take him in like a slightly more, maybe morose direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like a post Money in the Bank direction.
Yeah.
But we didn't get that. We got the same Seth as always, and I'm happy about it. I'm fine with that. We jump right into the Seth Alistair fight, which I kind of wish we had saved a little towards the end because it felt like the end of tonight's episode was a little promo heavy.
Oh yeah. How many fights do we even get today?
I mean,
5.
regardless of number, we definitely got some good fights at least.
6 fights.
It's not bad for a 3-hour show.
Yeah.
And again, the fights were all pretty good. we started Seth versus Alistair with, in spite of Alistair's like hot and heavy entrance, Seth's already like after we came back from commercial, Seth was already stomping him in the corner. And then Alistair sends a sweet little knee through Seth, clotheslines him like inside out, backwards. Every time with this man. And then it kind of just all went downhill. Alistair got sent into the announce desk. Rollins did a sling blade on him. Rollins was punching him, ripping his arms back, which, for me personally, somebody who reached backwards too far today to grab my cold brew coffee and hurt my shoulder. Watching him do that to Alistair, I was like, no. And then Seth basically spent the rest of the night isolating that part of his body. But we still got to see Alistair dodging a lot of stuff. We got to see, as Tom Phillips was out of his pants excited about black masses, Murphy and Seth. I don't know what Tom Phillips has with that move, but he screams whenever it happens. If you don't get to watch it live broadcasted, you should. I wish I could have that level of excitement about literally anything in my life right now. Then Rollins just stomps Alistair's poor little noggin into the canvas, pins him, and wins. And honestly, I really want to start seeing a fight where Alistair maybe wins against him. Or,
I mean, we had that a couple times. He's won a couple times.
I just want to be able to. I want to have faith that he can win without the help of Humberto.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he
or
got
Ray or Dominic.
He got close today. He even despite it being a 2-on-1, he still got very close. But I mean, was there really any point in the fight today? Was there any reason that this happened? Like, is this fight any different from the past times Alistair has fought Seth and Murphy?
I mean, I get what you're saying, and no, it really wasn't that different, but also, I don't know. I don't know what it is about it. I'm constantly excited to watch them fight each other. Alistair came out and I was yelling. I don't know why. I complain about the same thing with like the women's wrestling, but there's something about this where it's just like exciting to me to get to see this. But I am getting a little tired of watching Alistair get his shit kicked in, for lack of a better term. And Seth took a different route today, though. After defeating Alistair, he sends Murphy back into the ring to attack him, also joining in, and he sends Alistair out of the ring, him into the barricade a couple of times, and then starts talking about like, when is enough? And it's confusing because he's the one who's going overboard constantly. So I think he's the one who gets to decide when enough is enough. And then he kind of like wrenches Alistair's arm backwards and stomps on the poor thing, and it. But I think I need to see some semblance of closure on this story or a new chapter, because we're starting to stagnate a little bit.
Yeah, it's like this is all Alistair. I mean, we haven't even seen Humberto, but it's all Alistair, Seth, Murphy. Everyone's sort of focused on, and it's one of my favorite storylines, but it's dragging on for way too long. Had there been another change or a different outcome from Extreme Rules, I'd be more invested. But since everyone is back in the same exact position, And I had hope for Seth being the only one not in the same position, sort of have a mental flip. But no, he's in the same position too.
Honestly, I really don't think that we would be this. I guess like bummed is the word I could use here. I don't think we would be this bummed about it if it weren't for the fact that we've kind of been spoiled a little bit with this story, in that scene basically after every pay-per-view, after every big match, we've seen some sort of like movement, I guess. And this is the first time after a pay-per-view and after a big kind of like that we haven't seen something. And I'm willing to give Raw the benefit of the doubt on this one, just because barely disappoint me after pay-per-views. And I'm not even that disappointed. I really enjoyed this fight. I really did. I just think that the only thing it has against it right now is that it is a fight that we've kind of seen a couple times now.
Yeah, I mean, any fight with the two of these wrestlers never really disappoints. But like I said, we've seen it before. We've seen it 1,000 times by now. I just want a little shake up in the story. We can keep the Alistair Seth fight, but kind of, at the very least, throw Seth's perspective in a different direction. Maybe have him regret something.
I thought that like either he'd be morose or he would be more out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of seemed like we were back to square one, like where we started with this.
Yeah, like Seth's just saying, "It's your fault, Ray."
I think that there might be a reason why they're kind of holding off a little bit. I think that there is going to be something big that happens soon, and I'm sure we'll find out more next week. But I just think that today was like all right, everyone, just sit back. You've done enough at this point. Just take a break, and we'll come back to you next week.
Instead of Dominic, next time we get Rey Mysterio's wife defending him.
Yes, absolutely. That happened. So after the Alistair Seth fight, we were absolutely treated to. And Lashley with Ron Simmons backstage. I'm not sure why Ron was there today. Ron was never mic'd. I don't think we ever heard a word from him. He was just viewed twice, speaking to random people.
Mm-hmm.
We start backstage with MVP, Lashley, and Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons walks away, and Truth runs up to them and says what we're all thinking, that Apollo's really the champion. You're kind of just holding the belt for him right now. The problem is that now Shelton Benjamin is part of MVP's business, and sadly tonight we saw the end of R-Truth's current 24/7 I-95.
They made me watch all Reno 911.
Championship title.
So far, he might get it back. He's fought bigger fish before. He did a lot of damage to Randy Orton last time.
Right. I mean, the funny thing about the 24/7 is that it's like literally anyone can just knock Shelton Benjamin out, and if they've got a ref nearby, which they should always have a ref nearby.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal.
Speaking of which, I saw somebody comment on the Swamp fight yesterday, and when Bray pulled Braun underwater, a ref was underwater with them to count them out. Not for real. It was part of the joke.
Like you're saying, like someone saw that, and I was like,
no.
There is a ref in every room.
The guy that was lit on fire in the jumpsuit, that was a ref.
That was Who is it? Chris Robinson? Little blonde ref? He would do anything for this business, and you know it. But so now Shelton Benjamin's the 24/7 champion, which
Tozawa's probably gonna go after it. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I am not hurt by this.
I am.
It seems like very small potatoes. I mean, I'm hurt for Truth specifically. I don't want to see anyone else in that belt, but like for Shelton Benjamin to be wearing it over his shoulder, like, all right, sure. I also have like a fake tiara on my shelf over here that I can put on, and I can dance around.
How could you call the 24/7 7-Eleven I-95 South? They made me watch all of Reno 911 title the same as a fake tiara.
I bet he hasn't even watched all of Reno 911. So I guess Shelton Benjamin's the new addition to MVP's stable, which it's not shocking. At all. Then that progressed over to MVP being on stage with Lashley and Shelton, flanking him, if you will. When you consider the fact that there's a lot of rumors going around right now that the reason Apollo cannot fight currently is because of coronavirus, and the potential that he was diagnosed with it, it was like a little uncomfortable to watch MVP saying like, well, when I'm injured, I come out and I fight and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm sure Vince would love for Apollo to come out and fight regardless of coronavirus or not. However, Caleb Braxton has had it twice. Let the girl live.
Yeah.
But also somewhat as expected, as he's making this like weird speech, Cedric and Ricochet come out. I've expected it. Kind of was disappointed when it happened though, because I was like, you guys have done this like 2 weeks in a row now. Yeah. It didn't work the first few times. I don't know why we're trying a third time. And they're talking trash. They call MVP a coward. And then they say that, yeah, MVP's right. They can't beat him, Shelton, on their own. Which is why they have a new tag team partner.
R-Truth.
Oh my god, I really thought it was too for like a second. My brain was not like in like the special zone of like imagining. Then when they said like, oh, he's making his return to Raw, and I was like, Truth was just on TV.
Yeah.
That can't be it.
Rob Gronkowski.
Then, as if I'm like living in a fever dream suddenly, who but God forsaken, I love him so much, Mustafa Ali is here. He's back.
Didn't come out in the full neon though. Just had the neon mask.
Partial neon.
Just the mask.
You know what? Respect. You wear that mask on your walkout, baby boy. I love it. I'm still riding on like cloud 9 from this. Ali's been out for a little while now. I'm not entirely sure how long at this point. I'm gonna lag while I look it up. And I follow a select few wrestling Twitters that kind of keep me up to date on it just keeps me up to date on like what's going on in the wrestling world. Like they all seem to be pretty in touch with like what's happening, so it's never like I've got to go to 14 different Twitters to find out news. Usually it's there. I didn't see a single tweet about this rumor whatsoever. Maybe I'm just not following the right people.
I Googled after this happened, and I saw an article that said rumors of him moving, but I hadn't seen anything about it prior.
Um, it appears he has been out since 2019, November 2019.
Okay.
So he's been out for a hot minute. I really didn't see anything about this. And when he came out, I was like, oh my God. First of all, okay, here we are. Sick. Second of all, what about all those rumors that were saying he was the SmackDown hacker? We just gonna leave that one off to the side now.
SmackDown hacker is Matt Hardy confirmed.
I remember when people originally were saying it was CM Punk, and I was like, I don't think CM Punk, I don't think there's like a money value that you could put on bringing him back.
And then CM Punk said, I had an offer from AEW, but he did say no to the offer.
I do wonder what this means for the hacker storyline. I don't even know if we're ever going to see it again. And the problem, like, I wouldn't care that much if we just never found out after the whole Mandy Sonia thing.
Mm-hmm.
But because there is something that, like, the hacker could play a part in as far as the Sheamus Jeff Hardy storyline.
But now he can play a part in the MVP Apollo storyline.
I want Sheamus's name cleared.
Yeah, well, the only one who can do that is Sami Zayn, because he's the one who really did it. Unless it was Murphy.
Oh.
Okay. I see we're just making faces at the camera.
Yeah. WWE put the hacker storyline on hold conveniently. Rumors that the hacker is a she, not a he. Hacker also Twitter account, which I didn't really realize. But at least that's something, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, I'm thrown because it was rumored to be Mustafa Ali. It seemed pretty sensical, and now it seems like it's not that at all. And even if it was, I don't think that they planned for this.
Yeah.
This led into a Lashley MVP Shelton Benjamin versus Ricochet Cedric Alexander Mustafa Ali fight. And Cedric was in for 90% of the fight, getting just absolutely demolished by Lashley. He got clotheslined by this massive human being. He got suplexed into the canvas. The only thing that he was really capable of doing at any point was he finally got a boot into Shelton Benjamin's face to get Ricochet in. He managed to make the tag. A double team kicked Shelton and then got Mustafa in. Obviously, as anyone should have expected, because it's Mustafa Ali's first match back since November of last year. He shined like a sweet little star. Break and Ricochet was in, and we had a nice big boot from Ricochet to Shelton's face. Ricochet drop kicked the man. Mustafa got back in, went balls to the wall, just forearms sneaking out of ropes, being like a little liquid cat man. And he almost got the pin, except Lashley, of course, jumped in, as one should expect from Lashley, I guess. Ali evades him, and ultimately, we get a hard neck breaker from this man, and he goes from the top rope to do some hard knocks. Some hard knocks. Big double knees, his 450, 2 MVP from the top rope, says goodnight, pins him, wins. Thank God Ricochet and Cedric finally have a win against MVP and Lashley under their belt.
Yeah. You described it all.
You have anything you want to say?
I mean, you covered everything. It was a good return for Mustafa. It was basically his match, except when Cedric was in it for 50 hours. I fully expected Mustafa and that tag team to win, because you're not gonna... You never have the returning wrestler lose their returning match. I mean, I can't think of any where it's happened. Actually, I actually can. Rest in peace, Christian.
In the arms of an angel.
I hear voices. Oh, I can't remember Randy Orton's song.
I hear voices in my head.
They talk to me.
They understand.
Oh, God.
Oh, Randy. You hear voices.
But yeah, you covered it all. There's nothing left for me to add.
I do wish that we got to see a little more of Ricochet. Cedric was in for a really long time tonight. And the few contributions that we did get from Ricochet were pretty impressive. But I also do understand that it's hard to balance the time that you give someone in a 3-man versus 3-man tag match.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
It was nice to see MVP and Lashley kind of like finding someone who could take them on. I would have liked to see a little more Mustafa versus Lashley, though. We didn't get a ton of Mustafa versus Lashley. We got him versus MVP and him versus Shelton.
That makes me think that this is going to be the only time they do beat that tag team, because if it does come down to Mustafa versus Lashley, it's going to be another moment where Lashley dominates with a full Nelson in 5 seconds and it's done. I don't care how much tenure Mustafa Ali has, he's still not on Bobby Lashley's level. Drew's barely on that level. So this was definitely just a one-hit wonder for that team.
I think the one perk that we can look forward to now is that at least we've got another biased viewpoint against any potential harm that MVP wants to do to Cedric, in the way that he was like trying to kind of like be like, oh, you're a sidekick to Ricochet. And also, he was like,
is that your knee in front of the camera?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. What do you think it was?
I was just making sure.
It's Monopoly, little knee.
Oh my god. I do want to say we are already 40 minutes in somehow.
Raw does this to me every time, then I have to rush through everything. However, we can rush through the next 3 things. We had Randy backstage talking, saying nothing, absolutely nothing new. Just talking about how he's done so much to hurt so many people. Viking Raiders were talking to Ron Simmons too. Don't know why. We had a big show promo. And then we had an interview with Christian, my sweet, sweet soccer dad. Where he basically just told us that he was hurt by Ric Flair's movements, because Ric Flair grabbed him by the balls. And he wanted to. He said that he wants to see Big Show KO the Viper. Sorry, Christian. Once again, you're disappointed. After the Christian interview, we had Bianca Belair backstage. She calls the Iconics the thirstiest. And I said, Bianca, ma'am. Um, the Iconics end up showing up, and then Ruby comes out of nowhere. It's a very typical WWE promo reference, right? They're all in the right place at the right time. They kind of have each other's schedules down pat. And then Peyton started talking trash about Ruby's relationship with Liv, and I feel like I'm talking about like a reality TV show, but I was like, Ruby went in for the kill in that moment. I was like, I love you two together. Best friends. If you don't have anything to say about that, we can jump into the Peyton versus Ruby Riott fight.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing on that interview. You
fair.
covered it.
You make me feel bad. You make me feel like I'm just talking too much. So the one thing I do want to bring up before we jump into this is that during the promo prior to this fight, it was Peyton talking to Bianca and Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
And then at this fight, unlike normal times where, you know, Peyton is part of a tag team, so usually her tag team partner comes out, Peyton came out alone. Billie Kay was not there tonight. I don't know why. It's like one of those very tiny things that like I kind of just picked up on, and I'm sure there's nothing about it online, but it makes me like a little worried. Because ever since like Apollo got diagnosed, I'm like, if somebody's missing from like the night, I'm like, ugh.
I mean, yeah, it is weird that the Iconics was just the Iconic tonight.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does make sense given that Ruby lost to Peyton that one time, so it only makes sense that Peyton would be the only one to appear. And I was thinking about this during the fight, that what if we're just supposed to be getting the vibe that this is just like her confidence, like it's all internal basically. I know WWE would not think that far or that deep, but I mean, it's possible that it was all, especially like Bianca talking to Ruby would just be the result of the last match that they had, and would just be like her confidence being gained from Bianca, and then her newfound confidence going to face Peyton. I don't know. I have high hopes for the writers of WWE, but I know that I shouldn't.
I mean, with Raw, maybe you should.
Maybe
not that high of hopes, but like I think Raw deserves a little higher of a standard than maybe SmackDown.
I mean, it's still WWE writing women's wrestling, and they never think that far with women's wrestling.
True.
Unfortunately, maybe things will change now that Shane is back, but
the fight was pretty simple very quickly. Peyton spent the first little bit talking kind of trash about Ruby and Liv's friendship, and that's falling apart. And she got in some good hits. She got a nice clothesline in. She got some elbows to Ruby's face. It really made Ruby look like crap for the first half of this fight, up until the point where Peyton went up to the top rope and missed her move, giving Ruby the opportunity to super kick Peyton as she landed, knocking her out and pinning her for the win. But I glossed over this for a good point. The hanging arm submission that Peyton did on Ruby tonight was
beautiful.
Different. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. But very... It's not something that we're used to seeing, I don't think.
There was also another moment that I noticed that makes me also think that this was kind of an internal battle. The fact that Peyton kept saying, like, repeatedly, like, Liv doesn't like you and stuff like that. She kept talking about Liv so much, when I don't even know if Peyton knows Liv all that much. I mean, they had one fight with her, I think. Maybe two.
Well, to be fair, they've had more fights with her this just recently, because they had some time off from the brand, I think,
Mm-hmm.
before coming back.
Yeah.
But you've got a good argument there. I don't know if that's really where they're. I don't. I don't want to say that's not really where they're going with it, because I think in one way or another, whether this is supposed to be kind of like in Ruby's head versus reality, one way or another, what Peyton's saying is in Ruby's head.
Yeah.
Just proof that Ruby is kind of growing stronger than these insecurities.
Yeah, like I said, I know I'm not right. I know that for a fact. But I'm wishful. I'm wishfully thinking right now.
Yeah, that was a really quick fight. Ruby won. I was happy that Ruby won because Ruby has won approximately 0 things thus far.
Yeah.
So that was a good win for her. A nice, concise one. It didn't look too shabby either. And then we went over to Andrade, Angel, Garza, and Zelina backstage. And thank the Lord, Andrade is wearing his fancy clothes again. I don't know what was going on with him before, but he's looking nice, looking clean. He's got his weird, like,
His garb
type thing happening. Zelina's back talking trash about Charlie. It felt normal. I felt like we were in a good spot. We weren't. We weren't at all. Andrade said that, he was super confident. He said that when they defeat the Street Profits, that they're going to be a step closer to winning the Tag Team Championship for Raw. And Angel starts talking, and they're fully interrupted by the Street Profits attacking them. Which leads us into our Street Profits Angel Garza Andrade fight. Which wasn't bad. But it wasn't like an Angel Garza Andrade fight. And it really wasn't a Street Profits fight either.
I mean, I never really consider any fight to be an Angel Andrade fight, because if they're doing well, it means we're supposed to be against them. I mean, like, they're never impressive. They're not supposed to be. It's always just either everyone's hyped because their opponent is winning, or they're doing well and bullying their opponent. Because that's their whole domination technique, is they bully. They get them in the corner and start pounding them.
I don't necessarily say that their fights aren't... I don't want to say that their fights aren't... What I mean is that they have a slightly different style to the Street Profits. And I didn't really see an overwhelming style in either side of this fight. We didn't get quite the same acrobatics that we would normally get from a Street Profits fight, and we didn't get quite the same shady moves from Angel or like power from Andrade that we normally get to see. It just kind of felt like a very generic wrestling match with like a couple of like cool things sprinkled in here and there.
Well, you might also think that their tag team with Randy Orton might have changed them a little bit. Might have stopped them from doing their dirty stuff a little bit. At least their blatantly dirty stuff.
The problem that I have with them right now is that... Well, let me run through the fight real quick, and then I guess I'll talk about my problem with it, just so I can kind of get through this part.
Mm-hmm.
Andrade and Angel are immediately out of the... once the bell rings, they're out. They're ready to fight. Angel has Dawkins in the ring. Andrade has Montez outside of the ring. We cut to commercial. And then Andrade is back stomping Angela Dawkins?
Angela Dawkins, yeah.
Andrade is stomping on Dawkins. He kicks him. We get a sick right hook from Dawkins to Angel when he comes in. And we saw a nice suicide dive onto Andrade. A nice drop kick from Montez to Andrade. And Andrade was looking a little frustrated. there was no in-ring fighting that there normally is for them, at least for like the last few weeks there's been. And once Dawkins was back in, after Montez tagged him in, he was running around like he had something to prove. And after a failed attempt to throw Andrade, Angel gets tagged in and sets up for the superplex, and Montez says, absolutely not tonight, we're not doing that. Slaps the man and frog splashes him from the top rope for the pin and the win. And I think what was confusing is that I guess there's still tension. I didn't pick up on any tension whatsoever tonight. Tonight seemed like a really normal night for them, like a very standard wrestling match.
I mean, it doesn't seem like they really have beef with Street Profits, more so Viking Raiders. It seems like they're just attacking Street Profits for the title rather than for contention. But can we talk about the most impressive thing about the end of that fight, which was Ford doing the frog splash from the top rope. The height that he got was insane, and the fact that he changed direction in midair. He did a full 180 in midair. I know the announcers normally like to hype stuff up a little much. They'll freak out over, the more mundane things, but that was like that was like massive. The fact that he was able to do that.
Well, you have to remember that the laws of gravity don't actually apply to Montez Ford.
True.
We've seen a lot of stuff from him where he jumps over people, he does flips, he does like these little stunts here and there. And I'm left to sit thinking like, how is the human body capable of literally any of that? That doesn't make any sense. So, it was a really impressive move. And it's not the first time that he has been able to get an incredible amount of loft to his jumps. I don't know how he does it. Those legs must be like kangaroo legs, I think. But yeah, no, I agree with you. That was a really impressive move.
But overall, it was a good fight for Street Profits. Montez had a great fight, most of all. So I guess that's all you can really get out of this fight.
Yeah. After this fight, we had Angel and Andrade backstage, and they were kind of talking in like normal, neutral tones, and Zelina was yelling at them that she now has to fix like their messes and all this stuff, and I was like, lost fights before, and you've seen them lose fights before. What are you talking about? Like, what is happening? So
I think I know what that means, and it'll be kind of more evident once we move on. But I think that means they're kind of going to turn to Randy Orton and Ric Flair more because they got their win with Randy Orton. And he kind of did teach him a lesson. And so she might... I mean, she's a smart woman. She'll probably know what works and what doesn't. And what works right now is Randy Orton and Ric Flair, somehow.
Yeah, works is a very liberal definition. So after that match, we got Bayley versus Kairi. You informed me of something about Kairi earlier today. If you wanna, I won't steal your news.
For those who don't know, wrestling is taped. It's not live.
Oh my god, there were so many ways you could jump into this, and this is what you chose.
Look, so I need to start with that because what I would need to say is the episode that's being taped today, not the episode that went live today, the episode that was taped today, which will probably be airing next week or something. I don't know how far out they shoot. But the episode's being taped today is Kairi's last appearance on WWE. She's leaving in good faith. She's going to Japanese wrestling. I don't know if it's New Japan Pro Wrestling. But she's going to Japan, and she might make appearances at WWE again, but who knows?
Really upsetting. I think we talked about this on the podcast before. Something that I think we've talked about before, because we were surprised when Kairi made her reappearance just recently. Because the night before that episode of Raw, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. The night before that episode of Raw, I had watched a video from the clothes on the back of my chair just fell off. But I think I had watched a video from Wrestle Talk, I think it was Wrestle Talk. And I heard news that I'm going to feel like a jerk if I'm getting this wrong, because I don't want to get the wrong shout out. While I look this up, I'm going to keep talking. We had suddenly heard news that Kairi was retiring. We heard that she was done. Just absolutely done. And that was upsetting, for sure. But then the next night at the episode of Raw, we were sitting there and we were like, oh, there's Kairi. That's new. And yes, it was Wrestle Talk. Okay. Which is a great company if you want to get concise information about wrestling, unlike this podcast where we talk for a long time, which is good for some people. But it was confusing because I heard that news, and then all of a sudden she was there the next night, and I kind of pushed it to the back of my head because I was like, oh, it's fine. Maybe she's not leaving. Maybe she's gonna be with us forever. No, she's leaving, and rightfully so. She just got married. She's going back to her home and getting to compete. Semi-locally, I think, for herself. Because I think half the reason that she wanted to leave was because she just got married to this man, and now she's trying to just go back to where she was from. So it's upsetting, and I'm kind of scared to find out how the storyline ends.
I mean,
I'm gonna be sad.
It's WWE likes to do fitting send-offs and debuts for everyone. No matter who it is, they like to make things grandiose and sort of great departures for highlight reels and stuff. So they're not going to send off Kairi and have her watch her best friend lose her title that same night. I am 99.9% sure that Asuka's going to keep that title next week. There's no doubt about it. She's going to win for her friend.
Before we jump into next week's match, because that's something I'm really excited to talk about, and I will be talking about it in about 5 seconds. I do think, however, tonight was the last night that we will see Kairi Sane wrestling for WWE.
Unless... I just saw somebody in the comments mention that they might need former talent to fill in for Royal Rumble or something. They could ever return for.
Yeah. I think that more so I think that this is the last time we'll see her fighting within a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
As character with a background, I guess. That makes sense. And what better way could you send someone off than for her to beat someone who's been almost unbeatable recently? And to do so legally,
Mm-hmm.
without any tricks or anything. So with that said, let's jump into this match because there is still more that we can talk about as far as Kairi is concerned, and as far as next week is concerned. So Bayley and Sasha come out together with all 4 belts, and they're talking about how like they can justify last night and how Bayley just stepped in because like someone was needed to be a referee. Asuka comes out and is yelling into the microphone, and just as like they're about to charge at each other to start the fight, which was like a really weird way to start a fight that was billed, like we all knew was happening. Stephanie McMahon comes through on video chat. Stephanie McMahon, who I've had my fair share of opinions about over the course of my time viewing WWE, and very, 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 very few, if any of them, were nice feelings. But Stephanie says, like, hey, congrats, Bayley, you did something, I guess. But Sasha, that belt definitely doesn't count. Like, that's not your belt. Sorry. And announces that they'll have a match next week to determine the rightful holder of the belt. And among other stipulations, specifically that you can literally get out any which way, whether it's pinfall, submission, countdown, doesn't matter. If anyone external from the actual fight gets involved, but very specifically, if Bayley gets involved in this fight whatsoever at all, Sasha loses. It's a DQ. That's it. I said, Stephanie, I didn't realize you were a loyal fan of the Pinfall podcast because that's what I've been complaining about the entire goddamn time. I don't have any hair to push away. Flip that. I'm excited for that. I think this is a match that we've all kind of been waiting for.
Yeah.
And if it goes the way that I think you and I wanted to go, which is Asuka not losing her title. And if it goes the way we want it to go, I'm wondering if maybe that Sasha isn't able to win her fights without Bayley's interference creates a little friction.
Mm-hmm.
Friction.
What was that? What was that? What's it called?
Friction? Oh, hot here. Dang. Anyways, it's 90 some odd degrees right now. I'm so sweaty. That was really exciting. I was really happy to hear that. Started the match right off the bat. We're taking no prisoners. It's a sweet little head scissors on Bayley. Checks her. I like to call it the butt bump because they call it the hip check, but 9 times out of 10, I see contact with ass to person instead of hip to person. So I think they're lying just for the sake of saving face. Kairi got a really nice crossbody in on Bayley, but then was immediately met with a clothesline. And Bayley went for the suplex, but my God, Kairi is like my grandmother's golden retriever in the middle of the night. You couldn't move her. She didn't want to go, and you could not move her. It's a callback joke to my grandma's golden retriever taking up my space in the bed at night. I couldn't move her ever. And Baszler was watching the match for whatever reason. And by that I mean Shayna Baszler wants one of those belts, I'm sure. Says that she is very invested in the match. Scares Charlie Caruso off, just like she would probably scare me off. We got a sick stunner DDT. We got a sick sliding DDT. We got a sick everything DDT with a little cream cheese and lox on top of that. I'm sorry, I'm so hot right now. And not only if this is the last match that we see Kairi Sane fighting in, not only was it like a good thing that she won, but she came out here tonight full force. There were so many things that she did tonight that like we haven't really been seeing from other women wrestlers in Raw or SmackDown for that matter. That I was really impressed by. And I'm going to miss her form. I'm going to miss the fact that together, I mean, I know Asuka's still going to be there, but like together she and Asuka did like, they have like such a powerful way of attacking. I think we get to see a lot of that in the regular women's kind of matches. Like for example, like with Alexa Bliss and Nikki and like the Iconics, we don't really get to see the same kind of stuff. And they're really submission-based wrestlers. So it's going to be a real shame when she's gone. I'm really hoping that they'll have someone that can kind of fill those shoes to some degree. I doubt that we'll get anyone to fill those shoes to some degree.
I mean, probably, I think it's safe to say Io Shirai. We just had the same thought. What's the guy's name? What's the guy's name that's making a big announcement on Wednesday?
So, William Regal is making a big announcement on Wednesday. I'm not so sure that what you're saying is where that's going tomorrow, Wednesday. That is a point. I think Wednesday's going to be talking about NXT TakeOver. However, if Mr. Regal is talking about Io Shirai going to Raw,
it's probably going to be... If it was that, it would be like Io Shirai is going to Raw, and the NXT Women's Championship is going to be up for grabs. And plus it helps that Asuka was helping Io Shirai against Sasha and Bayley.
Yes. They do have a very similar aggressive style of wrestling, so I think that they would fit together really nicely. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's what he's announcing. I feel like we're getting really hyped up over an announcement that's probably got something to do with
TakeOver.
2 titles. I was going to say the 2 titles with Keith Lee or TakeOver or something else. Maybe this is the double ending that we've been waiting for.
Anyway.
But yeah, Sane countered Bayley's belly-to-belly suplex to roll her up. She landed perfectly just sideways and like moved herself over to roll Bayley up for the win. And if you didn't see it, I didn't see it. Mark showed me the clip of Kairi and Asuka on Raw Talk last week. You should watch it. It is... I have very lovely, wonderful female friends in my life, and I'm very lucky. I watched that, and I was like, I want that for me? It hurts so bad because it's so sweet, and it's so nice that it seems like they're really good friends, and it's going to be sad when she leaves. And I feel like it's going to be one of those moments where, like, maybe it's not written into the storyline, but, like, whatever match it is ends, and then Asuka kind of has to be like, Kairi, we did it. Like, it's over. And I think that's going to hurt.
I mean, talks of her retirement have been happening for a while now, and I feel like if they hadn't written something for that...
Right. More so what I mean is, like, in the same way that, like, when we kind of thought Drew Gulak was retiring or leaving WWE, and he had that match with Daniel Bryan, and afterwards they hugged.
Mm-hmm.
And we were both like, oh my God. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
and I think I'm probably going to come to this podcast next week for Raw. Puffy eyes, and we're gonna just talk about it, and it's gonna be fine. So after the Kairi Bayley fight, we got Drew McIntyre backstage. Thank God. New shirt, guys. We got a teal shirt tonight, not the same dark blue shirt that he's been wearing and sweating through constantly. He said that he feels horrible, that he feels like he was hit by a train, rightfully so, and just says he's making his way to the ring to talk about the future of Drew McIntyre. And I said, oh my God, no.
Drew's leaving WWE. Joining AEW.
I'd have to find a way to watch both at the same time. No, he's joining Impact because he's like, I just love Heath so much. He's my best pal.
Meanwhile,
Jinder's never coming back.
Jinder comes back and just looks around like a John Travolta in Pulp Fiction.
It's like the dog in like the Futurama clip where the dog just waits outside the store.
All right. We're moving on. Enough of that. Enough of that.
I'm sorry.
How dare you?
It hurts me too. Anyways.
Then Drew gets in the ring. We'll move on to there.
I wanted to point out that when MVP and Lashley were backstage and they ran into R-Truth, the way they ran into R-Truth is by MVP and Lashley talking to each other, and MVP sees him and he calls out, "Hey, Truth!" And I thought he said Drew, and I was like, no. But yeah, so Drew comes out to the ring and he's just talking, and I just want him to stop talking. There's nothing I want more in the history of my life aside from a stable job with a livable income. There's nothing I wanted more than for Drew McIntyre to just stop talking, get out of the ring, say thank you for watching last night, and just walk away. That's all I wanted. And somehow I got not what I wanted and also not what I feared, I guess.
We get Dolph again.
Yeah, Dolph comes out. Drew's talking about SummerSlam. That's a month away, Drew. We don't need to talk about it right now. There's bigger fish to fry. And Dolph is complaining about the match, and Drew basically tells him to go away. So help him God, he is ready to murder this man. Drew is tired. He decides, I'm not going to make my announcement today. I'm just leaving. Walks out of the ring. As I asked. I asked for that. As he's walking out of the ring, Dolph grabs him, and Drew Glasgow kisses him. Stunning. And Dolph screams, "Don't you walk away from me, you son of a bitch." Which, bold words for a little man. And Dolph says that he wants a match. I said, I want none of that. And Drew said, yeah, sure, matches are fun. That's why I'm paid to be here. And now Drew gets to pick the stipulation. I don't know if this is happening at SummerSlam. Drew was talking about SummerSlam, and then Dolph interrupted.
Well,
I'm not sure.
It's weird. They showed a watermark for Drew picking the stipulation next week, despite Drew saying that he's going to do exactly what Dolph did and not tell him until right before the bell rings. And no, Drew said in 2 weeks. He said, I'm going to wait 2 weeks. So it's not at SummerSlam.
I don't even know if this is like a match for the title at this point. It just sounds like, because Dolph never said, I want that title. I still want that title. All he said was, I want a match. Which I guess I should assume because Drew has the title, that's what it means.
Yeah.
But I know this is like WWE works, but I don't want it. I'm on it, dude. Again, I've said this before. I'll say it again. There's a lot of people that I would be willing to see as the champion, right? Give me Randy Orton. Give me
Big Show.
I don't know.
Edge.
I guess Big Show. I wasn't going to say him because I don't know how much longer he's going to be sticking around.
Edge.
Give me Edge. Give me someone with like tenure, which, okay, I guess that doesn't really work. A lot of these guys have tenure. But just give me someone who, like, Drew McIntyre, if we're talking about, like, you know, like, the whole thing, like, big shoes to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Drew McIntyre is like a size 15 in my head. There's not a single person that, like, ranges above a size 14 at this point. Aside from maybe Edge and maybe Orton. And even then... Huh?
Brock Lesnar.
I don't want to talk about him. Paul Heyman. But it just... Dolph Ziggler doesn't fill that size shoe. I don't want to keep watching this because I'm going to keep getting stressed out. I just feel like it's weird because, like, the scheduling in my head is, like, all messed up now because Drew was talking about SummerSlam and Dolph is talking about wanting a match ASAP. Drew's saying, I'll pick the stipulation and you won't get to know about it up until, like, the moment before the bell rings. And then Drew saying, wait 2 weeks. And now next week we're getting Drew picking the stipulation. And
do you want to move on? You seem stressed.
I want to move on, but my brain isn't letting me.
So, up next we had Big Show going insane and monologuing backstage.
Dude, tonight was the night of monologues.
Yeah.
Big Show was just kind of
rambling.
Talking. Yeah, he was talking about Randy. And then he started talking about tigers, which was cool.
I think Randy is actually driving wrestlers insane. Christian seemed insane today. Edge has seemed insane.
Blank. Christian's brain was flatlined right there, dude. Mm-hmm. It was nothing.
And now Big Show's just rambling backstage to nobody. He's just sitting in the corner under the shelves, just talking to himself.
Talking about tigers. Which, mind you, I'm pretty sure Big Show had I think if you looked on his arm here, he had a white tiger tattoo. Which is funny. Because guess who else has a white tiger tattoo?
R-Truth.
Aleister Black. Maybe, but Aleister Black definitely does. How do I know that? Because I looked at an article of all 54 tattoos of Aleister Black's.
So after this, we come to Randy Orton versus Big Show.
Quarantine has killed me on the inside. I used to be a person, and now that's what I do.
And then we started this podcast.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's actually helped the brain cells, but we're still here. So, Show versus Orton. I expected so much more, and yeah, I also got about as much as I wanted. In a very concise form. It's sort of like when you make a microwave meal, and you're like, yeah, it's a microwave meal. But you eat it, and you're like, oh, all right, sure.
This is a TGI Fridays microwave meal.
Yeah. I got those boneless wingies. I got some rice. There was onions. They were good. My second note for this match was I also hear voices in my head.
Do you want me to go on? You seem still traumatized after the whole Drew Dolph incident.
I haven't felt this level of stress since the Yankees were playing the Astros in the playoffs. Now that I don't have like much to base this stress off of because Liverpool had such a winning season. There was no competition there. This is about as much stress and competition as I've had to deal with for almost a year now. So my brain is really just trying to process. However, so the Show immediately got a nice kick to the knee, but he kind of dominated the first half of this fight. got some good punches in on Orton. He hit Randy Orton's shoulder, which made me feel like, oh no, Randy Orton's shoulder probably doesn't work anymore. We were proven wrong on that one. Big Show speared Randy Orton. Not something I'd ever like to see coming straight at me head first. Sounded terrifying. Looked terrifying. And he pulled the table out, which I was like, it's not Extreme Rules, you silly man. And just around the time that he was about to get ready to set up looked like he was trying to get ready to set up for the table, for Orton to get up on the table and for him to send him through the table. Andrade and Garza come out of nowhere to attack Big Show. Then the Viking Raiders come out to attack Andrade and Angel. And it was a bit of a mess. And that's why I say thank God for commercial breaks, because the commercial break brought us back to where we wanted to be, I think.
Mm. I'm telling you, there's a really good reason why those commercials are there, and it's so we're not watching just incredibly messy, drawn-out fights. I like the commercials. It's an editor's tool. As an editor, it's necessary.
It really does help, especially like when like you're watching a match where it's like a tag team, especially if it's a 3-man tag or something like that, and like all hell breaks loose, and like it's 6 people in the ring, and you're like, I can't keep track of all of this. And then it cuts to commercial, and it's just 2 people back in the ring afterwards, and you're like, okay, we're fine, guys. Randy takes Show's knees out with a nice drop kick, which, if you've seen the past few Big Show fights, you'll know that is Big Show's Achilles heel. The old knees. And Show went to KO punch Orton, as he kind of threatened to do earlier on, prior to this match. But Orton, sharp as a tack, rolled on out of there. Show pulled him up by the jaw to get him back into the ring, placed him on the table, and Show went to jump from the ropes onto the table. Knees first, mind you. Not what I would want. And Orton naturally strolls right out of the way. And then Randy Orton, the Viper, the man of the hour, comes through. I shouldn't like him as much as I do, but I love Randy Orton. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. I feel horrible. I love Big Show too. It's bad. But we get an RKO out of nowhere. You could kind of see it coming, but I like to say
it was not out of nowhere.
It wasn't out of nowhere at all, but I like to pretend that it was. And then just slamming chairs into Big Show. Like, this is still Extreme Rules Part 2. Show gets pulled face first into a DDT onto the canvas. And we get another RKO. And at that point, Randy just says, to win.
Field goal time.
So Randy pins him. He wins. It's not enough for Randall. He's been taking lessons from Timothy Thatcher, and he needs to teach Big Show a lesson. So he punts his poor little Big Show head. Which I just learned today that they banned the punt because they were worried about people trying to mimic it. And then Randy said, hey, I'm going to come back, but you got to let me punt.
What if they said Randy Orton's the only one who can punt?
So that was how that happened. It was also kind of funny because I had read recently, because back when I first started watching wrestling, I was not looking up people on Wikipedia and learning about their lives via Wikipedia and feeling like a total creep, mind you. But according to Wikipedia, Randy has something called hypermobility in his shoulders, which a lot of people have if you're super flexible, which just means that like the joints aren't that strong. And so he has he has injured his shoulders from a number of things, as many wrestling fans have seen. Um, but apparently, it's as simple as him. He could be pounding the mat, the canvas, or taking the trash out. And tonight he did the same thing where he pounds the mat with like both arms while crouching over it. And I was like, we're not going to see Randy for a couple weeks, are we? There's nothing holding this together anymore, boys. So that was our last match of the night.
A little underwhelming.
I didn't mind it that much. I enjoyed it.
I mean, I was expecting like something super great, especially out of Randy Orton, and Big Show. I was super excited for this match. But we didn't see Randy Orton at his best. We didn't see Big Show at his best. I see I'm not the priority here.
I'm being yelled at currently.
But yeah, I wanted more. Wish we got more. I'm not unsatisfied. I'm just a little underwhelmed.
I just think that would have preferred to see this at Extreme Rules and a couple things that we saw.
Yeah.
But it is kind of interesting to me that it was very Extreme Rules. But not at Extreme Rules, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I enjoy. God, I enjoy watching Brandy, and it was one of those fights that I've been talking about. I think maybe last Raw, where I kind of enjoy seeing the smaller guy defeat the bigger guy. I just think it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we got. And so I can't complain because I was asking for this like for about a week now.
Yeah.
So that is all of Raw. That is all of Raw that we just talked about.
Yeah. Every year, every year to come, we talked about it all.
We looked to the past and we told the future. You want to talk about the promo?
The promo of the night is... Oh god, okay. There wasn't too much today. We had a promo with MVP and Bobby backstage. We had Randy monologuing. We had Christian's little phone call. We had Bianca backstage with Ruby and Peyton. We had Angel Andrade and Zelina talking backstage. We had a promo with Angel Andrade. We had Bayley and Sasha talking in the ring. What?
Do you not consider Seth Rollins' entrance tonight be a promo?
I mean, I guess. I mean, even considering that, it still wouldn't be my promo of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, you had the interview with Drew backstage, and then you had Drew talking in the ring with Dolph, and then you had Big Show doing his little insane time monologue backstage under the shelves in the corner. But out of all this, the only thing that really was interesting in any kind of way and was entertaining was the Drew promo with Dolph. It set up a lot to come. It was Drew is such a good performer even when he's not wrestling. His ability to talk in the ring and it feels so natural is amazing, and like as a film director, it's exactly what I want. And Dolph works off of that perfectly. The chemistry between the two is outstanding, and you can tell they have a huge history together, just how they interact in the ring. And then it also adds an interesting story element, which is that the tables have basically flipped. And I'm left here wondering, is Drew gonna completely make the fight in his favor just to get it over with? Or is he gonna make the stipulation something that gives Dolph a little bit of an edge? Because Drew is just that kind of wrestler. It leaves a lot of questions, but I'm still left satisfied at the end. And that's why that's my promo of the night.
I agree with you. I think that's my promo of the night. I do think it's interesting to think about the stipulation that someone picks being the being kind of an indicator for personality, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that we saw the tables completely flipped, and we did get to see a little more of that, like, of manic Dolph that we saw last night.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, he was desperate for the attention. He was desperate for, like, Drew to, like, give him the validation he required.
Yeah.
And again, because, like, we've seen Dolph for so long on SmackDown that to see him now acting this way on Raw, still as a heel, but as a very complex heel that seems to not only be so sure of himself, but in a blink of an eye, so desperate for validation, it really convinces me that someone else is writing Raw and someone else is writing SmackDown. However,
it's like the Cesaro Shinsuke or the Sheamus storylines cranked up to 11. The lack of respect, the feeling that they deserve the respect that they're not getting. Drew or Dolph feels that, but on a much more personal level with somebody that he has spent a lot of his career with. Whereas Sheamus and Cesaro and Shinsuke, they don't feel like they're getting the respect from the company. It seems very like yelling into the void for all of them. Meanwhile, Dolph, it's much more personal. It's much more real. It's coming from his heart.
Sort of like when you read about, like, when you first learn about, like, how different conflicts are written and writing, like, in, like, different stories and stuff. There's like the
Man versus man.
Man versus man, man versus God,
Man versus the world.
Yeah.
Man versus nature.
It seems like, you know, like the Cesaro problems and like the your Sheamus problems were kind of man versus God in a way, because if you consider what we're looking at, the writers are God.
Yeah.
But this is one of the first times that we really seem to be getting a convincing man versus man. Storyline, and it is all hell. I want to see what lengths Dolph will go to prove that he's worthy of what Drew has, and I'm excited to see what lengths Drew is going to go to prove to Dolph that he is just a hanger-on.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good promo, because, like, the whole point of a promo is to promote feud.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And right now they are promoting the Dolph Drew feud, and I'm just sitting here and I'm like, want to know more. Give me more. So that's got to be the promo of the night. Let's get into the fight of the night, or the fighter of the night, because I don't want to. I could talk all night about this stuff.
So this one's a little tough. I'm very torn on both the fighter and fight of the night tonight. First off, we'll go one by one. We started with Alistair versus Seth, and my pick is Seth for this. Despite Alistair fighting two opponents at once, This wasn't really an Alistair that has impressed us as much as before. Yes, he was fighting more traditionally than normal. Um, Less acrobatics, less martial arts, more um, black masses, more suplexes. Um, and I think out of everyone, Seth Rollins was the real impressive one out of that fight. And then moving on to Bobby, MVP Shelton versus Cedric, Ricochet, and Mustafa. I mean, who else am I going to pick besides Mustafa Ali as the best from that fight? The fight was literally written for him. He what nailed it for me for him as the pick for that fight was his finisher. How he did a double flip off of the corner onto, was it MVP or was it Shelton? I know it wasn't Bobby. I think it was MVP.
It was Shelton. MVP.
Okay. Yeah, when he did the double flip off of the turnbuckle onto MVP, that alone was super impressive. But then you watch the rest of the fight, and he was outstanding. I mean, I don't think either of us had seen him wrestle at all prior to this. And if this is what he's like from now on, I know he won't be, because they're going to write them lose to Bobby and Shelton and MVP from now on, because that's just how they go. But super impressive form from him. I can't wait to watch him wrestle even more. And then you had Peyton versus Ruby. My pick was Peyton, mostly because of that move where she latched herself onto Ruby while on the ropes. It's a very, very cool move that we never saw from Peyton before, at least recently. Peyton had great form today. She was just rocking. Unfortunately, she didn't win. I mean, great for Ruby, but I definitely think that Peyton is the more impressive wrestler here. So she definitely deserves that pick for that fight. And then you had Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel. Montez Ford, I already talked so much about when we talked about that fight. He's my pick here. Montez was just a monster. His frog splash at the end to finish it off was all you needed to see that he is incredible. I mean, what else can you say that he's outstanding? Just his intro, their intro music is enough to hype you for what you're about to see. And then after, you had Kairi versus Bayley, where Kairi was definitely the standout here. Every fight we've seen of her, she's been the standout. She's just an incredible performer. Just nailing all of her moves and doing whatever she can to solidify herself as a great wrestler before she unfortunately leaves. Yeah, she just knocked Bayley out of the park today. And then you had Big Show versus Randy to top off the night. And Randy was the pick here. Although I didn't love him as much as normally do, he definitely performed better than Big Show. But it's not Big Show's fault. It's just how his moves are, where they're not inherently impressive. It's him using his weight, choke slamming, or just throwing his body into them. It's not a conventionally impressive fighting style. whereas Randy has that room to be incredibly versatile. But like I said, he wasn't as great as we've seen him already. So with all that said, it's very tough for me. You know, I can almost guarantee you're gonna disagree with me. But the fighter of the night for me is Montez Ford.
What?
Look, okay. I can.
Oh.
Are you gonna say Mustafa Ali?
A lot of glare coming off that dome of your squirrel nuts.
Are you gonna say Mustafa Ali? No.
No.
Alistair.
I wasn't. Mustafa Ali was not in for that long.
Okay.
Who do you think I'm going to say? Who
Alistair.
do you think I could possibly say right now? No.
Randy.
No.
Kairi.
Yes. You're a silly fool of a man if you think that that was not the fight of the night. Oh my god. Montez got the chance to shine because he was in a tag team match tonight. He got the chance to shine because he had a second to rest while Dawkins steam trained everyone. Is that what they're called?
Steamrolled?
Locomotive. Sure. I don't know. Trains used to be run on steam or something. Or no, that's a tugboat. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Steamboat was what I was thinking of.
Steamboat?
That's what I wanted.
Steamboated them?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a word that they use for Braun Strowman. How many bras? It's hard for me to choose somebody that went through in a tag team and got over vis-a-vis a tag team. When Kairi Sane fought that entire match all on her lonesome, and she came out in flying colors. She came back from hit after hit. She was able to nail every single one of her moves, and she looked like an absolute star tonight. She looked like exactly what you want to see in the women's division of Raw. And frankly, she looked like what you would want to see in either division of Raw or SmackDown or NXT. She looked amazing tonight. She did it on her own. I can't even begin to understand where you're coming from with Montez. I'm sorry. Love that man to death. He is so fun to watch, but that's not where we're at tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm willing to argue that it's easier to stand out in a singles match because you're only competing with one other person. If you're in a tag team, you're competing with 3 other people, arguably 5 other people if you're in a 6-man. But I'm not counting Mustafa Ali because he was literally written to stand out that fight. Montez had to compete with everyone else to stand out here, and he definitely did. Although you had Dawkins steamroll them in a couple moments, he did struggle very early on, leaving Montez to get in the ring and do a lot to Andrade and Angel, and nobody hyped me up as much as Montez Ford did. His passion in the ring, his screaming at the top of his lungs, and just his sheer acrobatics. How I think it was Andrade was charged at him twice, and he just split jumped over them each time. And that finisher where he frog splashed, turned 180 degrees in the air. He was more impressive than we've ever seen him before. Meanwhile, Kairi, yes, she was great. She's not the best we've seen her. I think it's not as good as the last time we saw her in her last singles match. I compare the two. I was definitely more impressed and more hyped up with Montez's performance than Kairi's. I think the main focus on Kairi's fight was sort of on Bayley here and her struggle to sort of maintain her championship status after being thrown this terrible bone that Stephanie McMahon threw to them. Whereas the Street Profits fight was very much just mano a mano. There were no what's the word? There were no mental games thrown by an outside party. It was just a fight. It was just a fight, and Montez Ford was the most exciting thing today. I don't know what you're disgusted by. Was it not a fight that we watched? Was it like some kind of dance routine or something? I'm confused.
I'm confused by the fact that you're saying that Stephanie McMahon coming through and saying, hey, next week, not this week, next week, the match that's happening next week in 7 days, why you're saying that played a part in tonight's match, which was already planned, it doesn't make any sense. I don't think Bayley was ever like, hang on, you got a second to speak, let me run through this one. Bayley was not like shaking in her boots.
No.
There was no chance in my head that anything that Stephanie McMahon said this evening played a part in how Bayley fought Kairi. Bayley fought Kairi head on because Bayley knew Kairi was a menace to her. And lo and behold, Kairi was, quite successfully, an absolute menace to her. There's no way you can convince me that was not the fight of the night. My goodness.
We're not on fight of the night. We're on fighter of the night. When I look at fighter of the night, I look at the in-ring performer, the person behind the character, whether they've put in the work in the fight to deliver an amazing performance, both not in terms of character, where we look at like Kairi's history, like her character's history in this scenario, but how they performed today. Whereas Montez Ford performed outstanding today, hyped everyone up incredibly with his just emotion today and his excitement. That same passion, I don't think Kairi had to the same degree. She had passion, but it wasn't to the level that Montez had.
I can scream into a camera. I don't necessarily expect that to hype people up. I didn't feel hyped up by Montez screaming into the camera by any means. I felt more hyped up by Kairi landing the moves that she came out there to do over Montez Ford just yelling loudly.
That's not all he did, though. That's not all he did.
That's what you're saying is like what hyped people up was that he was yelling. I'm not looking at when I'm looking at Kairi, I'm not looking at like 2 weeks ago or something like that. I'm looking at tonight. I know how we do this. I don't think that I don't think that tonight was emboldened because of a match a couple weeks ago. I don't think that tonight was emboldened for her specifically because of something Bayley's going through. I don't know, man. I cannot compute in my head how Montez is anywhere near the level of skill that we saw from Kairi tonight.
Okay, well, we will leave it to our followers on Twitter. If you can go to our Twitter at the Pinfall Cast, we will be putting up a tweet after the podcast is over, letting you guys decide who you think is the fighter of the night, Montez Ford or Kairi Sane, or comment who you think should be fighter of the night tonight.
And then we'll argue with you for 10 minutes about whether or not you're right.
Nope, we won't. Liz will. I won't.
I will.
Because I'm not the argumentative one. I'm kidding.
Just trying to come out here and have a good time. Gonna sip a little cold brew. So would you like to talk about your fight of the night?
Yes. So, I hope you don't think my pick is as ridiculous as you thought Montez Ford was.
Listen, I'm sorry. I was shocked that you chose that. I really did not see that. That was out of left field for me.
It's like you didn't even watch the match.
Do you want to see my notes? Do you want to see the notes I take in comparison to your notes? I'll show you my notes. I'll show pictures to everyone. They'll see who's watching matches.
Thanks for watching, everybody. So, fight of the night. We had Alistair versus Seth. We had Bobby, MVP, and Shelton versus Cedric, Ricochet, and Mustafa. We had Peyton versus Ruby, Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel. We had Kairi versus Bayley, and we had Big Show versus Randy. Right away, I think I can knock off Peyton versus Ruby just because that fight wasn't anything to write home about. It was a good fight, definitely one of the better that we've seen of the duo. I can cross off Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel because that fight was very one-sided. Angel and Andrade are never really super impressive to watch in the ring. I don't think that they bring much to the table other than their heel personalities, which, I mean, they're amazing at heels, some of the better that Raw has. But I don't think that they brought much to this fight. I'm also going to cross off Alistair versus Seth because we've seen that fight a million times already, and I am just tired of that by now. I can't believe I'm saying that because I love all of them so much, but I'm just tired. I'm also going to cross off Big Show versus Randy, despite it being our main event. Because, look, Big Show, Randy, they're amazing wrestlers. What we didn't get today was an amazing fight. We didn't get main event material. So it's hard for me to pick that one. I'm also going to cross off the last of the two remaining, which I'm going to cross off Bobby, MVP, and Shelton versus Cedric, Ricochet, and Mustafa, just leaving Kairi versus Bayley, because you go into that knowing that that's most likely Kairi's last fight. And she is going up against one of the most invincible women's wrestlers right now. And she, as you put so eloquently, she outperformed herself. She shined immensely. And it also was led in by a very exciting moment for all of us, because we all want Bayley and Sasha to lose their titles. It was led by Stephanie McMahon.
Sounds so bad when you say it like that. I'm sorry.
Well, look, you're not supposed to like heels. It's how the writing goes. Unless the heel is Seth Rollins. Or Dexter Lumis. God, my eyes feel so puffy right now. And even Bayley was great today. Bayley never really impresses so much just because that's her style. She's not the most impressive wrestler. And it's not her fault. It's not anybody's fault. It's just how she's kind of developed herself as a wrestler. Kairi, though, she, I think, is the more impressive out of the Asuka-Kairi duo. Her acrobatics are something very similar to a luchador. And watching the two together in the ring was very exciting, especially when Kairi started winning. and it showed cracks in the Bayley Sasha tag team. It showed that they can be beaten without the help from each other, and that gives a lot of steps forward for next week's fight and the future for all the participants in that ring, except for Kairi, unfortunately, because next week is the last week we're going to get her. So I'm sure you're going to agree with me. Kairi versus Bayley is my pick for fight of the night.
Actually, no, I think it's Montez and Dawkins versus... Kidding. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's very rare that we get to see a fight where the tag team leaves the ring and Bayley and Sasha are left standing in it looking desolate. And I loved that. And also just based on like the storytelling, the fact that it seems like finally like almost like when like you've been bullied so long in school and finally teachers like, hey, stop, don't do this anymore, this is stupid. It kind of felt like that finally. Where there was someone who was like, no more, I'm tired of this. So the fact that we got that story progression, plus the fact that it's one of Kairi's last matches, plus the fact that Kairi performed so well tonight, and plus the fact that Bayley performed really well tonight too without needing Sasha to do anything sketchy. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed seeing the raw talent of Bayley and Sasha, or Bayley, I guess, because we don't see that very often anymore. And I got to see the raw talent of Kairi without any distractions. It's also another thing that we don't get to see very often.
And you said before that you don't think that Stephanie McMahon's words had a play in this fight, but I think that really stopped Sasha from intervening, because what it, I'm sure, told them was, you guys are not impressive wrestlers on your own. If you're on your own, then you're worthy of being a champion. And they're kind of testing the waters with that today.
Well, when I showed my fight of the night, I didn't really kind of think about that. I thought more about Kairi.
Right. Yeah.
Bayley.
Yeah, I know, because you picked Kairi.
I think overall, the fight itself was impacted by that in a sense.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see that kind of like the phase one of that, which we'll get phase two next week. So I'm excited. This made me kind of excited to see another Bayley Sasha match, which I very rarely find myself in that position ever.
It also helps that it's a Sasha match, where she is the more fun to watch out of the duo.
Yeah. Yes. I agree.
So to recap, our promo of the night is Drew talks about his future, featuring Dolph Ziggler. Fighter of the night is a tie between Kairi Sane and Montez Ford. Go to our Twitter so you can vote on who you think is the fighter of the night. And then our fight of the night is Kairi Sane versus Bayley. And that is all.
Oh. Good Lord, it's the end of Monday. In fact, it's actually probably Tuesday right now. Yes, it is. It's Tuesday right now. Happy Tuesday to everyone who stuck around. If you stuck around. I hope you did. If you didn't, thanks. We will be back Wednesday. We've got a nice day off tomorrow finally. We will be back Wednesday though. We will be talking about NXT. We got a sick Karrion Kross Dijakovic fight. We got a sick Dexter Lumis Killian Wade fight.
Killian Wade?
We've got a sick Killian Wade. What is it?
Killian Dane.
Killian Dane. I was thinking of Wade Barrett.
Wade Boggs.
We have William Regal making an announcement. Am I stressed? Yes, I am. But yeah, so that's everything you've got to look forward to, and so much more. Come Wednesday when we come back. And I think that's it.
Follow us on this Twitch. If you enjoyed, you'll be notified whenever we go live. And it lets us know that we're doing well. If you want to follow us on Twitter, our Twitter is at the Pinfall Cast. Just remove pod from the name, and you're
No
there.
pod.
No pod. There we tweet about whenever we go live, and you will notice our fights and fighters of the night there in case you miss a podcast and are still curious. We also retweet and talk about a lot of wrestling news there. And follow our individual Twitters. Mine is at the Mark MARC Cameron, and Liz's is at Eliza Elaine 23. And lastly, follow my personal Twitch. I go live 3 times a week before wrestling starts, and that is twitch.tv/Mark Cameron. And that's it. Oh, we'll see you on Wednesday.